everyone, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be doing here an updated deck profile to my Relinquished deck. This is definitely going to be fantastic, of course, because with the recent release of King's Court, I decided to actually take a look at the set extensively and find that there is actually support for the Relinquished deck. It's very surprising to honestly see that there is actually support for this deck, but it is definitely still something very fantastic. It is a new idol card, which is definitely a great addition to the deck and definitely will extend a lot of plays a lot further with this particular deck. So seeing as we're adding in a whole new change into the deck itself, it's definitely going to be something I'm excited to try out in this particular format, and for you guys to actually try out yourselves as well based off this particular deck profile. So without further ado, we're just going to get started, but before that I would like to remind you guys to drop a like, share, comment and subscribe if you guys enjoyed this content, and obviously hit the bell notification as well, as it really does help you as well as this channel. But with that being said, let's just get started. To begin with monsters, we're going to be playing here 3 copies of Relinquished. It is the main card of our deck. It starts us off and there's no such thing as playing any less of it. Moving on, we're going to be playing 3 copies here of our Millennium Eyes Illusionist. Definitely a really crucial card for the deck, still really great at 3 copies, I wouldn't change it. Of course, here's the new addition to our deck itself. This here is the Golden Eyes Idol, definitely a fantastic card. Because it's actually a new card, I will just go over the effect itself. So once per turn, as a quick effect, you could actually activate this particular effect. Look at your opponent's hand, and this card's name becomes Thousand Eyes Idol until the end phase. Now that's a really good effect because if you activate this, you could essentially add to your materials. So when you go for a basic fusion summon, you could actually go into your Thousand Eyes Restrict, which is definitely fantastic, of course. However, there is more to it. If this card is banished or sent to the graveyard by card effect, you can target one effect monster your opponent controls, equip that effect monster to one Eyes Restrict or Relinquish monster you control that cannot be normal summoned, which essentially just means you get to steal a monster, which is very powerful, of course, because the minute you use this as a fusion material, you immediately take one of your opponent's monsters. While equipped by this effect, that monster gains attack equal to the attack of the equipped monster. You can only use this effect of this card once per turn, which is definitely fantastic, of course. See that it's not necessarily the most broken effect, but it definitely does help out the deck quite a bit, and being a level 1 as well, it's quite nice as tribute fodder for your ritual summons. Of course, we're also going to be playing 1 copy here of our Illusionist Faceless Mage. It's still a one-off in this particular deck, there's really no need to play any more copies of it. Besides, the rest of the deck has a lot more cards that I think would be a bit more versatile in different situations. Of course, that goes without saying that this deck will play 3 copies here of Yugioh of the 10,000 Hands, allowing you to add whatever cards you actually need to, ritual or ritual spell. Next off, because we're playing some fusion cards, we're going to be playing here 3 copies of Orpheus Scorpio, as well as the 1 copy of Darling Tonia Cobra. A really great engine to start you off, otherwise you could use it as link material as well, and you could definitely still pull off quite an extensive amount of plays out there. Finally, for the monsters, we're going to be playing here 1 copy of most of the kaijus. We're not playing every single one, but you want to have at least a good variety of them. As a result, I'm playing all 5 of them here. The only one I'm missing out is Radiant. You could definitely play Radiant in the deck as well, it doesn't really matter, but you want to have 2 of the stronger ones and then you want to have 3 of the weakest ones, giving it to your opponent, of course, and then summoning out your strong one to your side of the field, and just attacking over the opponent, which is definitely really nice. And I believe that in this particular format, the way things are actually going, you have cards like Dragoons, you have plenty of other cards out there that just negates, and the kaijus are just so crucial at this particular point. Being able to splash into this deck is very amazing. Of course, you could even take back your own kaiju using the Relinquished cards you're actually playing, given this whole deck is based off Relinquished after all. However, moving on to spells, we're going to be playing here 3 copies of Black Illusion Ritual. Again, a key card in the deck. I could actually drop this down to 2 copies because if you're playing a Preparation of Rites, you could technically add this back to your hand. But with that being said, we are also only playing 3 rituals, so the Preparation of Rites will only apply if you're able to search out a ritual monster. So because of that, I'm sticking to 3 copies of Black Illusion Ritual. However, it is understandable for someone to actually decrease it by 1 copy. Next, of course, we're playing 3 copies here of our Relinquished Fusion. It's easily searchable with the Predaplan engine anyway, and with the new Golden Eyes Idol, this card is becoming more relevant for the deck itself. Now, of course, to search out our cards, we're going to be playing here the Preparation of Rites or Pre-Prep, and we're going to be playing here 2 copies of Preparation of Rites. I figured this would be enough for the deck itself to be able to just get what you need without playing or forcing yourself to play so many of it. If you play too many, you end up having dead cards anyway, so you don't really have an idea on getting rid of it. My side deck does actually include Twin Twisters, so I would actually use these extra cards that I draw into as discard fodder for Twin Twisters. However, that's in very specific games where I even need to side in Twin Twisters to begin with, and that can only apply to burn decks out there. With that being said, we are also playing 2 copies here of the Interrupted Kaiju Slumber. This was definitely a hard choice. I thought about playing 3 copies of it because I am playing 5 Kaijus after all, and I think with Relinquished, if you're going first and you have nothing to start off with, going for the Interrupted Kaiju Slumber is definitely a really good move. You always want to go into something at least, so you usually would actually activate this here first as a means to bait out some sort of negate, and if your opponent negates it, then you could actually follow up with a Relinquished play, taking their monsters. So it acts as a bit of bait, but even if your opponent has no negates, you're bringing out a Kaiju onto their field to steal anyway, and you're bringing out a Kaiju on your field, so technically you're choosing 2 Kaijus in which you can attack your opponent with. Definitely fantastic there, and if it's in the graveyard, you get to search out more Kaijus anyway. But moving on, we're playing here 2 copies here of Super Polymerization. Definitely fantastic. 2 copies is more than you actually need for the deck. You're playing so many fusion cards anyway. You're playing the Predaplan engine, you're playing Anaconda, which will search you your fusion cards, but you have 3 copies of Relinquished Fusion, and we have 2 copies of Super Poly. I think that's definitely a really good number for them. Of course, that means we're also playing here 3 copies of Instant Fusion, definitely a really searchable card. It's at 1 anyway, but this deck has so many targets for Instant Fusion, it's pretty much just a really key staple for the deck itself. We're also going to be playing here Called by the Grave. You don't want to be disrupted by your opponents, and sometimes they might have a bunch of back row sets. Because of that, I have here a Harpy's Feather Duster, just in case. Now moving on to the extra deck, we're going to be dropping off here with 2 copies of the Millennium Eyes Restrict. Absolutely amazing card, of course, but with that being said, we are now able to play 2 copies here of the Thousand Eyes Restrict as well. In previous builds, I might actually opt to play only 1 copy of the Thousand Eyes Restrict, but given that we could easily go into our Golden Eyes Idol so easily now, we basically can go into a generic fusion summon of this instead of having to go for an instant fusion all the time. So definitely fantastic in this particular point, because Thousand Eyes Restricts can actually directly steal the opponent's monsters as opposed to the Millennium Eyes Restrict. Now of course, with that being said, I did play 2 copies of the Super Poly, so we're going to be playing here some Super Poly targets. We have Starving Venom, we have Predaplant Tryptophan, we have here the World Legacy Guard Dragon, we have here our Mud Dragon, and then we're also going to be playing here 1 copy of Relinquished. Now these 4 cards firstly are the instant fusion targets, making them very great versatile cards to go into. You could go into these cards yourself via, well, particularly just one of them with your instant fusion to go for further link plays, but these three here could definitely, along with the Mud Dragon, can still definitely disrupt the opponent, and they can't respond, so it's very good to actually be able to go into those cards. As for Relinquished Anima, we're only playing one copy because we really only need one copy. We don't really see any situations where we need to extend further into a second copy, though I have actually been thinking about it, but I think the rest of the extra deck does add to their flexibility into the deck, their versatility, which makes them more favourable than playing a second copy of Anima. But speaking of the rest, we're playing here one copy of the Verte Anaconda, self-explanatory. We're playing here Cross Sheep. You could definitely benefit that off with the ritual summons in the deck, but also the fusion summons. And then we're also playing here the Nightmare Engine, which I believe to be a very strong engine. And finally we have here a Pentastag as well. You know, you're playing a bunch of big monsters, you're playing a bunch of kaijus. How fun would it be to actually just link into your Pentastag and be able to go into your kaijus, allowing you to do piercing damage with them. It's fantastic. However, that was pretty much it for this particular deck profile, so I do hope you guys enjoyed this. Definitely let me know what you guys actually think about this. What do you actually think about the Golden Eyes Idol? Do you actually like the new addition to this deck? Otherwise, let me know what your suggestions are or how you would actually build it yourself. But I do think that this deck, you really can't go wrong with the different ratios you choose. However, I do thank you guys for joining me today. I hope you all have a fantastic day. I'll see you all next time.